Gail, can you start recording, please? All right, welcome, welcome. Hi, my name is Angela Rausch. I am the chair of Livable Sunnyvale. Thank you for coming here tonight. We have a slight room problem. We don't have the mics working in here. So I will try to be as loud as I can, and participants, please be as loud as you can also. I will say yesterday it worked perfect, but today, is today. So I have many thank yous and introductions, but if you'll humor me for a minute, I wanted to start with a slightly different practice. Usually at our Livable Sunnyvale meetings, I start with a question. Tonight we'll do something a little bit different, just to make you feel a little uncomfortable or at ease. So sit, get comfortable, close your eyes or avert your eyes. And just take a breath for a minute. Fold your hands in your lap, maybe a different way, or cross your legs a different way, something that's a little bit unusual for you. And think about the people that got you here tonight. Maybe it was your partner who made you coffee so that you could practice your lines or your responses. Maybe it was the babysitter or a nanny that's watching your kids. Maybe it's the person who brought you here, somebody you carpooled with. The people that got you here tonight. Go back a little bit further. Think about maybe the person that got you into local politics. Maybe there's a high school teacher that encouraged you to register to vote. Maybe it was a parent who said, we are a community, participate in community. All the people that got you here tonight. That's it. Thank you. So, thank you very much for coming, for sharing your time, your evening with us. Thank you to the participants, the candidates for saying yes, for the courage to say yes, and the courage to share yourself with us, the community. Thank you, Sunnyvale Community Services, for the beautiful space. Thank you for your tech people, Mike and Valerie. Thank you to Dave, who pulled out the WD-40 and said, this is how the wall opens. He also said, you need to be a rock star when you use the microphone. Hold it straight out, not down like this. Let's see, who else do I need to thank? Thank our board. We have been working hard to put this on and to try to make it as smooth and as efficient as possible. We spent a lot of time. It will not go smooth, I know that. I'm trying to keep my feet on the ground and breathe, but it will be what it is. Who else to thank? I want to thank our coalition partners who helped advertise this event. Charlie, who's doing the timekeeping for us, thank you. Anne for saying yes as backup for anything. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Jessica Menez, if I pronounce that right, who is our translator. At Livable Sunnyvale, we have decided to include all and make that a statement in what we do. We have translation service tonight, and we hope that it goes well. It was time for us to say, yes, we're going to try, and not no, it's too hard. So bear with us as we try our translation. Paulina is in another room, and I think she's getting everyone gathered in the room that need translation. I don't think I need to pause anymore, but okay. Thank you all for sharing your time and your night with us. And so let's begin. So as we start, each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves and share a bit about themselves. So Bob, you are first. If you can use that one, please.
And I understand I'm supposed to hold the microphone like this. And you wanted me to talk loud. Was that because the microphone is not working, or?
The microphone is not working in the room, but people on Zoom should be able to hear. Sorry.
Okay, talk loud, microphone. Got it. My name's Bob Goodwyn. I'm your Libertarian candidate for the office of 26th State Assembly. And I'm the one who wants to reduce government. I see the source of our problem is that we have too much government spending and too much government regulation. Both of those are causing huge strains on the economy. My focuses in this campaign are the interlocked issues of homelessness, the fentanyl crisis, and education. And in all three of those cases, I see that the government is causing more problems than it solves. And I know most of you don't see it that way. It's always an entertaining part of putting this pitch together. And so we'll be working through that and how I want to solve the homelessness problem, solve the fentanyl crisis, solve the education issues, and everything else that comes up tonight by having a government that only enforces laws that protects you against aggression and fraud by the government and by other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Tara, please.
Thank you so much. My name's Tara Sreekrishnan. I serve on the Santa Clara County Board of Education. Proud to be the only Democratic woman in the race. I have lived in Assembly District 26 my entire life. I am a daughter of immigrants that moved here for a better life and for our public education system. And proud to serve our 31 school districts across Santa Clara County, some of our earliest learners from K through 12 and also post-secondary. And I have worked in every level of local government, city, county, and state, with a focus on education, climate, and housing. I'm currently a state legislative director in the state Senate. So I love getting bills signed into law. Last year, I managed a package of bills where we got 15 bills signed into law. You know, some of the things that Bob discussed are youth fentanyl crisis, addressing that, building more housing and streamlining housing, and also combating our climate crisis. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Patrick, you're up.
Thank you so much to Livable Sunnyvale for putting this first in-person forum on for us. I'm Patrick Ahrens. I'm born and raised here in Assembly District 26. Went to Booksher Middle School, Santa Clara High School, and De Anza Community College, where I was the first in my family to graduate college. From there, I transferred to UCLA, where I met then Congressmember Karen Bass and Congressmember Janice Hahn. After graduating there, I worked in the United States Congress for 3 years and quickly learned that change does not go to come out of DC, it comes to DC. And after 3 humid summers and harsh winters, my sensitive California roots made me want to come back to California. And I've been working in the state legislature ever since. This is my 10th year working in the legislature. I'm the current district director for Assemblymember Evan Lowe. I'm also a trustee for the Foothill De Anza Community College Board, where we've been able to do and make amazing strides on housing affordability and so much more. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm not growing up in US. I spent my first 30 years in my life in China. So I witnessed China was poor under the communist control. I was part of I benefited from the open policy that the country brought the people from poverty to get a middle class, like the world, the good living standard. Now I'm here. I spent 20 years in Santa Clara. I was the audit committee of the city of Cupertino. One thing made me decide to run for state legislation is that I found California has laws enable the corruptions, legalize the corruptions. Every year, California lost $1 billion because the cities are stealing each other's sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with our first question. Despite passing many housing bills, California produces fewer housing units than needed. During the last 10 years, California produced fewer than 80,000 new homes each year, far below the projected need of 180,000 additional homes annually. What legislative priorities do you support to increase housing production? And Tara, you're first.
Thank you so much. Well, I love to say that all roads lead back to housing. Just in the past decade, the Bay Area brought in 6 jobs for every 1 unit of housing. So at the state level, I've been working on affordable housing streamlining legislation, CEQA reform as well, and have been successful in some of those efforts. I think we can incentivize cities and counties to choose higher density development. I think we need higher heights, higher density, and we need to make it easier to build and permit. And so a lot of this work is done in partnership with community groups, with developers, with affordable housing advocates, with housing advocates. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of negotiating. We have to go through the committee process. We have to remove opposition where we can. And when we're building housing, I've really had a focus on climate-friendly housing. So that means REACH codes. I've been able to work on REACH codes and building electrification both at the county and the state level. This year worked on successful legislation to conserve water in new buildings. I think we have to move housing, climate, and our transit goals in the right direction at the same time. Also, I want to have a focus and continue my focus on transitional housing. So this is short-term housing when we get folks off the streets, before we get them into permanent supportive housing. In 2020, at the staff level, helped lead our housing homelessness action plan in partnership with unhoused residents, bringing their voices to the table.
Thank you. Sophie, you have 90 seconds also.
Thank you, everyone. I traveled to Tracy and Stockton. There are lots of lands that are under construction, but the commute between like Mountain House to here is terrible. I drove back, it was heavy rain. I'm so sad for people who had to travel so long in order that they can have a house that they can afford. So I think the public transportation needs to be improved. That's a bottleneck for our affordable housing. If people can come into the town, the city, and move out easily every day within an hour, the housing problem can be solved by moving to urban areas, more house built there, and they come in easily. I think that's a public transportation. I went to the light rail, VTA, and Caltrain. People said the train did not start when I have to go to work. The train stopped when my job finished. It's not convenient for people. I think we need to improve the public transportation.
Thank you. We have Patrick now.
Thank you for that question. Housing and housing affordability is the #1 issue I'm hearing when I'm talking to the residents of this district on the doors and in the community. I think we need to be focusing as a legislature to bring back more money to our cities so that they can be best equipped to understand and help build affordable housing. I'm speaking directly to the need to possibly bring back our redevelopment agencies to help build housing. There's so much fighting back and forth between our cities and our state right now on local control policies, on streamlining efficiencies. I think all of that needs to be sorted out. We need to make it easier to build. We need to streamline our zoning process and our permitting process. It shouldn't take months and months as it is now to build ADUs and new homes and development, but we can't just continue to demand more and more from our cities without properly funding it. We need to bring back more taxpayer dollars in the form of an example of a type of redevelopment agency so that regions can have the resources that they need. We're also doing that at a local community college. I'm proud to say that we are the first community college in the state to allocate $200 million in bond money to build affordable housing on community college property. We need to be empowering and helping our cities to end student homelessness in our lifetime and on our watch. And I think that can be done, but we need to get resources to our schools.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you. We're talking about housing now, and we're talking about housing. We're getting to the subject of homelessness. And I see the major driving force behind our homelessness problem is economic. We have an economy that does not allow the poor to get ahead. Government spending and other taxations are a huge invisible tax on the poor. You don't see it, but the buying power of their money is diminished to the point where it no longer makes much sense to work. They can't get ahead. Add to that misguided government regulations in the labor issue, such as minimum wage laws, and then regulations on housing, such as rent controls and such as CEQA. And it becomes an issue where people cannot get housing and they want to work, but they know it really isn't worth it. And so I want to stop that government spending. It's a huge tax, but once you start putting the brakes on the government spending, then people will be able to work a little and get ahead. And when people have a free market economy and they're able to work and get themselves ahead, then you will start seeing that they can afford to put a roof over their head. And once we remove the restrictions on housing, like my other colleagues want to also do, then we can start seeing people safely housed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is, losing retail on a large scale may disrupt small cities and towns' retail sales tax revenue. What steps will you take to protect retail? Sophie, please.
First, I want to share with you that the city of Cupertino paid to Apple $1 billion out of our sales tax. Also, San Jose paid to eBay $500 million in 3 years. So we are losing sales tax, billions. Now, the small business did not get even 1 penny from the cities, like I mentioned. I feel very sad for them because they had to face much difficult time, but there's no help from the cities. That's why small retail closed. That's our policy, the state legislature enable the big corporation get huge kickback from the cities. Not only the Bay Areas, Tracy, because they have a warehouse of Amazon, they get $20 million. For what? Our Sunnyvale, I'm very proud of our Sunnyvale because Sunnyvale did not have any revenue sharing with any corporation. This is excellent. There's no corruption. There's no under-table transactions. Our small business need to have the same amount, like 35% of the sales tax given to Apple. Small business should be able to get that amount. But our legislator refused to help them. This quoted as the economic needs for who? For big corporation, for the richest people in the world?
Tara.
Thank you so much. Well, I really think it's about striking that critical balance between supporting local business, fostering economic prosperity, and also building housing. And there are two policies I'd want to champion. That's mixed-use zoning and also flexible zoning. So mixed-use zoning would allow for both commercial and residential zoning, in these higher densities, and allowing for more walkable, bikeable neighborhoods, especially near transit. And the state's invested in affordable housing and housing near transit centers through climate-friendly housing. And I think alongside that, we need to invest in zero-emission buses. I think buses can be an inclusive and viable transit option that will allow folks to access their local businesses. In terms of flexible zoning, when we promote flexible zoning, we can revitalize underused areas. Parcels that are underutilized can be We can build affordable housing and retail on those sites by allowing for flexible zoning. So those are two priorities I'd want to follow through with.
Thank you. Bob?
Okay, with regard to making things better for retail, first I suggest you stop looking at tax revenue as a goal, because the taxes are the problem. As I said 3 or 4 times already, I'm going to say it a few times before, government spending and other taxes make transactions less profitable. It becomes less worth the trouble to go into business. And California is setting a very bad example for that. The government spending and the taxes drive businesses away, and they're leaving. And I don't know if any of you have noticed, but there have been some layoffs lately, some big ones. It's the spending that's driving people away. In addition to taxes, regulations, little things like the minimum wage, which is completely unnecessary, other regulations that are unnecessary, and also there is the growing issue of crime in California. And crime happens when there's no moral authority, no background. It becomes okay for the government to steal, depending on who you are, and kids can see that. And I certainly want to enforce laws. I want to change the laws to where you're actually hurting someone, unlike in Prop 47. I'll finish on that. Prop 47 should never have touched the laws against property crime. We definitely have too many people in prison, but they should have legalized the victimless crimes. And then once you have a moral authority to say it's not good to steal, coming from the top down, we'll have less crime. Thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you for that question. To me, protecting our retail is directly connected with building walkable communities. It's directly connected to building and getting out of our housing affordability crisis. It all has to be connected. And I think for far too long, we've looked at in our own silos of protecting retail based on a tax incentive or protecting retail for the sake of retail. But if we're not looking at the larger picture, and yes, we need to protect retail with mixed use developments, but it's got to be about a larger issue, because right now what's happening is we are looking at strip mall by retail location and saying we need to protect this, or we need to put in affordable housing or more market rate housing or whatever it is. They're all interconnected, and I don't think we're doing a good enough job as a state to empower and support our cities to see the bigger picture on that. I'd love to work more closely with our city councils to protect those tax revenues for the cities and the state, but also it's got to be about building better, more inclusive communities. North Sunnyvale doesn't have a major shopping center. They don't have a major grocery. And people are having to get into their cars and drive more. And it's a huge equity issue for us. Mercado 20 Shopping Center is owned by Mission Community College, and they get a huge source of revenue on that. We also need to be thinking outside the box and looking about where we're putting our revenue so people can walk and bike more easily in our communities. But we got to be thinking more outside of the box about how and where we protect our retail space.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our sustainability questions. Do you agree that climate change is a major threat to our planet? If yes, what legislative policies do you support to reduce greenhouse gases? And do you agree with California's target of carbon neutrality by 2045? If no, why not? Bob, please.
I find your question nuanced in a negative sort of way. Climates are going to change. It's what they do. And so saying I do or do not believe in climate change, of course climates have changed. There was a newspaper story a few weeks ago about an animal that became extinct due to climate change. I read the article, and it happened a few thousand years ago. The climate goes through these cycles. And I do not see enough evidence to attribute it to man-made CO2. I'm all for protecting the environment, but I view limiting carbon dioxide as the lowest priority. Therefore, the short answer to your question, I think, as you intended, is no. And I also see the intention of California to become so-called carbon neutral will cause a lot more economic damage to the state that we cannot afford.
Thank you. Patrick?
Thank you for that question. I don't think that it is a major problem. I think it is the most major problem facing our state and our nation, our world. I think that what we need to be addressing as a state all goes back to infrastructure. At the Foothill De Anza Community College District, I'm proud to have led the effort to make our community college be on track to be the first community college to go fully electric and fully decarbonized by 2035. We did a decarbonization study, and it is going to be very expensive to transition in our infrastructure. The state needs to step up and spend more in supporting our school districts and supporting small businesses and supporting individual homes, transition to heat pump water technology, because this infrastructure is the inconvenient truth that we have talked about. But it needs, if we're going to reach those goals, then our local communities need funding, and they need support from the state to do that. Big supporter of Governor Newsom's climate change policies. Disappointed to see the budget proposals cut a lot of our climate change funding. We need that $2.9 billion back in our budget if we're going to reach those goals. I'm happy that California is going to be the first in the state to harness wind technology offshore. I think we need to be greatly expanding that. We need to go fully electric in our vehicles. There needs to be subsidies and support to do that, so it's done in an equitable way and not just people who can afford it. There's a lot of issues that we need to work on when it comes to fighting climate.
Tara, please.
Thank you so much. Well, I would want to reach some of those targets quicker. You know, I'm proud to be running as a climate champion in this race. I founded a nonprofit about 5 years ago that engages students in the environmental sciences and guides them to be their own climate leaders and climate activists. And they lobby the Sunnyvale City Council and school board as well. And, you know, I want to bring some of the work that I've been working on at the local level to the state level. So on the County Board of Education, with a lot of tenacity, I made sure that climate change literacy was a board priority, and it's became a board priority and administration priority. And we've expanded our outdoor learning, our garden-based learning, and our climate action programs across our county schools, and also providing resources to district schools. And I'd want to expand those efforts statewide, and was proud to be a small part of making climate change education a graduation requirement finally in the state of California. But first and foremost, we need to end our emissions crisis in California. That means ending new oil and gas permitting, full stop. You know, we produce millions of barrels of gas and oil each year. So I think that needs to stop. You know, I played a part in holding accountable our largest polluter in Santa Clara County, Lehigh Cement. You know, served on a nonprofit board, and after many years, they're finally being held accountable, and the Board of Supervisors is looking at new uses that are better for public health. And I'll end by saying proud to be still endorsed by the Sierra Club 350, Bay Area Action, and Climate Action California.
Thank you. Sophie, please.
Personally, I do my part by even washing my clothes by hand. I air dry to save the earth, right? I do not throw out, I do not go out, take out. I save the bottle, I use them, something that's personal. But the statewide, the public transportation will save many of cars on the road, will save the emission. So not only save people's life, bring the job, and this will also save the earth. How much money do we spend on VTA? In $12 billion, we spend $500 million on administrative cost. I mean, just by having so many people working on computer, that also costs energy, right? So we need to improve the government efficiency. So for all this, I think we need to improve the transparency. I, as a CPA, I will first thing to put for whatever slogan we make, how much it will cost, how much was done, what's the result. We need to see it. The financial reporting needs to be reconciled to the source data. There should be no disconnect. There should be no discrepancy, like a $15 million discrepancy in the revenue reported. If we allow these things happen, save the earth is just a slogan. It doesn't go anywhere. We have to put everything into transparency governance.
Thank you. So my next question is quite long, but I will share that we provided the questions to the candidates beforehand, so they had a chance to fine-tune their answers. Mike, I was supposed to remind you to record. Great. Thank you. Okay. Meeting Bay Plan Area 2050's vision for an affordable, connected, diverse, healthy, and vibrant region for all requires a more integrated transit system. Would you support legislation designated the Metropolitan Transportation Commission with responsibility for setting policies essential to the user experience of a seamless transit system and conditioning receipt of transportation funds on compliance with these policies? Sorry, it's a long one. Patrick.
Yes. I think that, you know, I had to take the bus for all 4 years of high school, and I had to take the bus 2 hours one way to get to De Anza Community College when I was a student there. It's not an efficient system. We need to look at the user experience. I support all of Seamless Bay Area's proposals about looking at the individual, having a seamless one fare or one ticket policy throughout. We are 26, 27 transit agencies in the Bay Area. There needs to be a hierarchy. They're not all coordinating together, and they're not required to all coordinate together. I do support looking at some governance reform, but ultimately there needs to be a top-down proposal about how we're getting there, and it needs to be focused on the individual. North Sunnyvale doesn't have access to the resources in the middle of Sunnyvale or South Sunnyvale when it comes to, there's not a high school in North Sunnyvale. There's a lot of gaps in our transportation policies that's not centered at students, and it's not centered at, from an equity perspective, and low-income people. I am proud to have led the effort when I was a student to implement a green eco pass, what we called it at the time in our environmental club at the Kirsch Center. It is now a free Clipper pass for all of our students for light rail and VTA passes. We were the first, and now every community college in the county has that. That's what happens when we focus and paying attention to what the users.
Thank you. Bob?
To the specific question, no. That commission is made up of appointees from various boards throughout the region, and they already have the ability to communicate with the parties that they came from. So if there's some rule that's good, they can communicate with their local commissions and boards, and if it's a good rule, they can agree with it. If they don't agree with it, there may be a reason why they don't. And I view giving the commission rulemaking power is more of a steamroller than streamlining. It's going to tell these local governments what they must do, and if there's some reason why a certain region doesn't favor that program, really, it's not necessarily a good idea to just force them to do it. I think in the long run, it's going to start having a transit system that behaves like a monopoly. Now, to the broader question of transportation, we are subsidizing the automobile by taxing you, making more people homeless, and then building more roads, and then wondering why people can't get out of their houses. And as a libertarian, I want to tend toward more privatization of roads. Some of you are getting used to the idea of paying tolls when you take a road. I don't see why we can't expand on that. And then transportation, not necessarily linked to local governments. It does not have to be that way. If you remove the government and political and union influences, then other transportation, and thank you. It says stop.
Thank you. Sophie, please.
Every morning, I go to the public transit to ask people, what do you think the public transportation can be improved? None of them told me that a new commission is needed. They are all asking for more considerate for the users. So I think we all agree there's problem, but is that the solution to just to have a new commission? I don't know. But one thing I want to tell you, by looking at VTA's financial statement, they have 2,700 employees. All of them, the salary cost $6 billion, but the board of directors had 0. So does it mean that board of directors time means worth nothing, or are these people doing anything? So if the board of directors are paid zero, they cannot do anything. Why would a new commission with lots of board of directors can really make changes? Having a commission is one thing, have a power to really do things is another thing. We need the result. Something that come from the users, from all the passengers, for people who need the transportation. We have highly educated people in the Bay Area. We should ask our citizens, ask our residents, all the passengers, what's the solution, instead of have something arbitrarily appointed a commission. That's my suggestion. We people should have solution. We have technologies, we have high-tech companies, they can help. Thank you.
Tara, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I definitely do support the Seamless Bay Area initiative and a more integrated transit system. But I don't think MTC can do it alone. You know, I think we need the city, county, and state at all levels to work more collaboratively on this. So one effort several years ago that I was able to help lead with city, county, and state partners was a climate emergency declaration at VTA, a first in the nation declaration to adopt a climate action plan and become more sustainable at VTA. And I think we need that same partnership at Seamless Bay Area. And so while we're making a more integrated transit system, there are some notable cons to consider. You know, it could lead to delays in service. It could lead to employees losing their job. So we'd need to make sure that a more unified system was addressing all locals' unique areas and how to best serve them with a more integrated system. It could be very complex and time consuming, so I'd want to make sure that we're being aware of all of those obstacles. And then want to end by saying, you know, I'm proud to be endorsed by our VTA transit workers, you know, and that's because of the work that I've done to help secure state funding during their times of need, whether it be recovering and rebuilding from the pandemic or recovering and rebuilding from the deadliest mass shooting in the Bay Area. So wanted to honor them as well.
Thank you. Next question. How do you make cities more safe for cyclists and walkers? Tara, you're up again, sorry.
Thank you. Well, from research and anecdotal evidence, I think the biggest factor that's keeping people off their bikes and in single occupancy vehicles is fear of safety, fear of getting into an accident. So we need dedicated bike lanes, full stop. We need class 4 bikeways for our bikers. This will be good for our transit users. It'll be good for walkers. It would be good for bikers. It could make our neighborhoods more walkable, more bikeable. And alongside this, traffic calming measures, you know, making sure our lighting's correct to make sure our bikers are safe, improved signage, improved signals. I think this all takes community involvement. And one thing that I've been working with local bike activists on is public awareness and education for folks that are drivers, getting that in our DMV manual potentially, making sure that drivers know the rights of bikers, I think is so important, and starting that at the school level as well. I think we can do more in terms of integrating bike curriculum in our schools, whether it be in partnership with Safe Routes to Schools or in our classrooms. So there's more I'd want to do in terms of education as well.
Thank you. Sophie.
One thing I noticed that we have so many new neighbors on the street. I call them neighbors because I want to know where they come from, what's their name. But they have a tent along the way. So I think that actually create uncertainty, is feel danger if you don't know who they are. And if you see the neighborhood people you don't know walking around, sneaking into your house, that create the unsafety feeling, the fear. So I think homelessness is a significant issue for our neighborhood. I feel your question is more related to homeless, not related to traffic. So I would address that first.
Thank you. Bob?
I view the most immediate short-term issue with regard to bicyclists and pedestrians are the new contraptions, the electric scooters and electric skateboards that I see people flying down the street on, even when they're not on the sidewalk. You look at those people and you say, that's a bad risk. And first of all, I would enforce rules. I'm a libertarian, but if you're on someone else's street, you obey the rules. So that means if you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk, we'll have the men in blue talk to you about it. Or if you're riding the wrong kind of device, or even riding without the right kind of equipment, we get the police out for you. But more importantly, when I see somebody going down the street on one of those, I see an education problem. I'm looking at someone who flunked basic risk management and who flunked basic physics. I want to scream at them and I say, hey, if you go down, you're going to break some bones. And if you hit somebody else, you're going to break some of their bones. Who taught you this? And I think one of the many reasons I want to improve education and get a free market in education is we will have people who understand risk and can behave safely without being forced to. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patrick, please.
Yes, I think definitely it's an infrastructure issue that the state could be investing more money than it has. I'm proud to have worked with bicycle activists in our community in the last year's budget to secure $1.85 million for the city of Sunnyvale to work on their Safe Routes to Schools initiative for Lakewood Elementary School. And but we need to see more of that. We need to see more collaboration with our elementary, middle school, and high schools on building the infrastructure needs required, not just to keep kids safe when going to schools, but we need protected bike lanes and bike route infrastructure along El Camino, more along Stevens Creek. But it's also an access issue, right? There are many, many poor students in our community that don't know how to ride a bike because they can't afford to ride a bike. And so how do we help work on this issue? I think we need to partner more with our local nonprofits. A lot of people who are riding their bikes growing up also don't have access to helmets. And I think we could be doing way more to partner with our local nonprofits and schools to ensure that not only are we building the infrastructure necessary to keep people safe, but encouraging more people to use it. That starts with an access and an equity issue. Too many poor students, too many poor people don't have access to these services because these bikes can get very expensive. Bike safety can get very expensive. We could be doing a lot more partnering with them, partnering with our elementary and middle schools in particular, and helping them with that endeavor.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Silicon Valley Pain Index. According to the Silicon Valley Pain Index 2023, 56 individuals or families in Silicon Valley own $323 billion of total wealth, while the average wage for the Latino and African American workers is less than $78,000 a year. What would you do to address this? Patrick, please.
There's an extreme disconnect in our community between the stratification of wealth. We have this district in particular is home to probably the most millionaires and possibly billionaires in the state of California, and yet we have students who are starving. We have homeless students in our Sunnyvale schools, and we have people who have a lot of need in the community as well. I think that we need to go back to getting out of our silos and working together to address these issues head on. Silicon Valley Leadership Group has led for many years on these issues of getting big business to contribute more to our major bond transportation programs, to education issues, and to housing issues, because they see that affordable housing, good transportation is all necessary and for their vibrancy in terms of their economy and their workforce as well. I think we need to be doing more on that effort. I think your next assembly member has a power to convene a lot of these conversations and groups, and we need to be seeing more of that in our business community and quite frankly looking at our tax structure and seeing what is working, what's not, closing more corporate tax loopholes to get us out of the deficit that we're in, but also so we don't have these large swings. 2 years ago, we had a $100 billion surplus. Now, depending on who you talk to, it's $36 billion or $68 billion deficit. And that's in large part because of our over-reliance on the current tax structure that we have in terms of taxing more and more of the tech sector that's occurring. It's great that we're getting that revenue. My time is up, but we do need to be addressing some of these inequities in our tax structure.
Thank you. Bob?
Our current system steals from the poor and gives to the rich. I'm going to repeat that. Our current system steals from the poor and gives to the rich, especially when it is claiming to do otherwise. I hear a lot of free money coming from the other side of the table. That money comes from somewhere. And it's not getting taxed away from the rich. The rich can get out of that. The money comes from the people who would otherwise have economic activity. But on whether they're buying something or selling something or trying to buy something, that's being taxed away and the government spending is taking it away from them. We have enough wealth in this society to put a safe roof over everybody's head. I think the audience can agree with that, if that wealth were distributed equitably, and I mean by the old definition of equity. And therefore, the first priority in changing this is to stop that theft. You stop stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. Someone who has a right to their property and to their commerce, that right should be protected no matter how little they have. And then we no longer have it taxed away. We no longer have unworthy people living too well. We have a free market economy and everyone starts getting richer. And maybe someday. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie?
I just heard a story this afternoon. A Latino who came from Mexico. Her father worked 14 hours a day. They were able to run grocery stores. They bought lots of properties. So it's not true to say every Latinos are poor. So she told me very proudly that her mom told her the right thing to do. Her mom keep learning and then keep doing stuff. But again, I want to thank Bob for telling the story to disclose that the truth. Sales tax is taxed the same amount to poor people and the same amount to the rich people. Billionaires pay 9% when they go out to eat. Poor people have to pay the same amount, 9% in the same restaurant, right? But our sales tax were paid to Apple, paid to eBay. That's not acceptable. We lost $1 billion to big corporations. So we are subsidizing rich from the people we take from the poor. That's made me very angry. I want to change this. So transparency will help. Education, teach people how to be entrepreneur. The seed money, we need to provide poor seed money for them to become entrepreneur, to be able to buy and sell instead of work. I met a young guy, black, he's 20. He just want to find a job. He said, I don't care, I just need to find a job to make money. That's the poor education that limited people's capability to become rich. We need education and seed money.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you. Well, I believe we have huge divides here in Silicon Valley of the haves and have-nots. Whether you look at our wage gap, whether you look at eviction filings, whether you look at fentanyl overdoses. And that's why I'm proud to have worked on successful policies and legislation that stemmed from our Silicon Valley Pain Index. And one of those innovative policies has been guaranteed basic income. I'm proud to have worked on now 2 programs around guaranteed basic income for some of our most vulnerable people in Santa Clara County. One for transition age foster youth. This was in the pandemic, and now starting this summer for unhoused high school students. So these are meeting youth really in those critical years. That's very impactful for their lifelong development. And I think this is very key to closing some of our systemic divides and some of our generational cycles of poverty. And I think that generational cycles of poverty are what really create our extreme divides here in Silicon Valley. And I'm proud to be the only person in the state of California that's working on a guaranteed income bill in the state of California. And that's to bring guaranteed basic income to 15,000 unhoused high school students. There are 15,000 homeless students in the state of California. And I'll end by saying I think equity starts with representation and making sure underrepresented groups have a seat at the table.
Thank you. Moving to the next question. How will you ensure that the high school graduation rate of students of color will increase? What measures do you think will increase the percentage of people of color who will elect to pursue a college education? Sophie, please.
Continue the story I told you. The 20-year-old came from Zambia refugee camp, came here. He's not educated, but he's homeless. He tried to be a Amazon delivery. He's making $100 a day, but the cop found him with problem, put him into jail, took his vehicle out. He had to pay $115 every day for the towing company. So my question is that for all these kind of poor people, our system is broken. They cannot get help. So we need, instead of forcing more and more laws, we need to have start from the individual level to all the people to look at their needs, instead of saying, oh, in order to increase rates, let's lower the standard. I don't think so. So I think we have many individuals come into here. They are not educated. They need to have connection to the society. And that's what our community can do. There should be fund for the community and the neighborhood, the churches and HOAs, and they reach out to all these people and then find individual solutions.
Thank you. Patrick?
Great question. I'm already working on these issues. I don't want to wait until I get elected to do that. I'm proud to be on the Foothill De Anza College Board, where we are working actively with our high school districts in our service area and outside of our service area about increasing graduation rates for Black and Brown communities in particular. We have signed, while I've been on the board and board president, more dual enrollment programs in our high schools than ever in the history of the district, so that high school students can take college classes before they graduate, and they can even graduate with their AA degrees. We are instituting placement testing in our high schools so that they don't have to go all the way to De Anza or Foothill to get placement testing and get introduced and do orientation classes to community college. Community college saved my life. Like I said, I was a homeless student. Both of my parents abused drugs. I grew up in not a great hand. Far too many of our students experience these issues, but we need to meet them where they are instead of saying we are just going to help the students that come to us. There's far too many students that are being left behind and not graduating high school, not graduating college, and we need our school districts to work more closely together. As an assembly member, I'd like to scale a lot of the success that Foothill De Anza is, one of the best community colleges in the state of California, the highest transfer rates, the best professors. We need to do more of that and invest in a lot of the things that I mentioned and scale it to 116 community colleges.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Well, I believe that every effort must be made to maximize opportunity. And I think we have a very large opportunity and academic achievement gap, even here in Santa Clara County, which we've been working to close on the County Board of Education. So I want to focus on two efforts I've been working on now that I'd want to champion at the state level. One is strengthening early learning. I think we all know that our academic achievement gap, the route for addressing it starts with early learning. Those early years are very critical. You know, 90% of brain growth happens before a child turns 5. So that's what I've been working on in our Strong Start Coalition in Santa Clara County. There have been historic state investments in early learning and universal transitional kindergarten, which has been great, but we need to make sure these investments are coming down at the local level in a way that ensures high program quality. And so there are two things in early learning I'd want to continue to focus on. One is our workforce pipeline. We don't have enough ECE educators. We need to strengthen our workforce in early learning and childcare. Two is facilities. We don't have enough facilities to serve our children in early learning. So these are two things I'd want to continue to focus on at the local and state level to strengthen early learning. And when it comes to apprenticeships, so at the County Office of Ed, we're supporting pre-apprenticeship programs to get our students in high quality careers. I want to do that at the state level.
Thank you. Bob?
Something seriously wrong when you find yourself framing the question in racist terms. Something is wrong and we need to look at that seriously. Now, I'm a libertarian. I want to get government out of the business of education and have it in a free market. We all as libertarians want that. It's not because we want to keep our hard-earned tax pennies. It's because we want to see the kids get better educated. When you have a free market, then you can start having the kids getting a higher quality education and the costs are less wasteful. Public education is repeatedly failing. Oakland has bureaucrats that are as capable and dedicated as any other, but now Oakland sought to close many of its schools, and the solution was for the Attorney General to come in and say, no, you keep them open. And one wonders what kind of good that is going to come to in the long term. So yes, I want a free market in education, and how that will reflect on race. The free market is the most equitable in terms of rewarding people for their ability and their effort. And when we study free markets, we find that if you interfere with that market, the damage comes out in other ways. And one of the ways that happens is you find more racial disparity. And none of us wants to see that. And so, yes, I'm a libertarian and I'm going to say it. We need a free market in education. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next question. Oh, we are at the lightning round. Oh, wow. So this will get a little bit more flowy or exciting. So the questions are only 30 seconds long. And the first question is for Bob. What was your first paid job?
That was quite a while ago. No, I did some cold calling. I was an intern for a Merrill Lynch advisor. I was not a Merrill Lynch employee. I was working for this advisor. And I was terrible doing cold calls, I'll tell you. He was very nice to not have fired me. And to this day, that Merrill Lynch advisor is now my financial advisor. And most of my money is in an account being managed by him. And thank you, Paul.
Very good. Tara.
I was a music instructor in Cupertino. So during college, I had a part-time job, taught about 25 students, piano, classical piano, and also music theory. So did that throughout college for about 4 or 5 years.
Nice. Patrick.
I had two jobs because I was lifting myself up and trying to prevent myself from being homeless again in college. So I worked at TGI Fridays in Cupertino, home of the Jack Daniel's Grill, where I had all the tchotchkes and all of the buttons and suspenders, but I destroyed all those photos. And I also worked at Starbucks at the Great Mall, where I can make Frappuccino faster than anybody.
Thank you. Sophie.
At age 20, it was a communist planned economy. You cannot go to any company to get hired. You are assigned to this company, but it paid me $20 a month. But the bus ticket to go there to work is more than $30. So I quit that job. I took a train, traveled about 3 days to the coastal city of China, next to Hong Kong. I wrote my resume in English. I look at the American companies, I introduce myself. I get hired for $200 a month. So I went to find a hotel to stay in, and then I was able to work there. So job is very important. A free economy that there's no restriction is very important in my personal experience.
Thank you. Next question. Do you think it is appropriate for the state to mandate the number of housing units each city must produce? Sophie.
I don't agree with that because there are areas that's less developed that you can build many houses, and with public transportation, you can bring people in and out easily. And then by squeezing into very high density area already and leave those places where you have backyard of 20,000 acres, I really don't think it's reasonable to have this one cut that everybody had to follow this rule. So I don't agree with that.
Patrick.
I do. I think we know what happens when we don't mandate it, which is in part has helped led to the crisis that we're in now, but we need to mandate it with support. The state needs to step up and support the production and streamlining and funding of housing as well. Just mandating and going back and forth on these local control issues is not going to help us get out of the housing crisis either. We need to have goals in place. We need to mandate those goals, but the state needs to come in and support either through our investments or through our other grant programs or getting taxpayer funding back to the cities.
Thank you. Bob?
Not a mandate, but I am open to having the state stop a local government from creating limits on housing. There's a difference between those two. And so sometimes a local government can be just as bad as the bigger government, so I would approach it with caution. So I am open to, as is happening now, the state government preventing the local governments from restricting housing, but not a mandate, no.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. I do believe it's appropriate. You know, I think housing's our existential threat, especially here in the Bay Area. But as someone who's worked at the city level and at the county level, I know that local governments are getting all these mandates, but not the resources they need, right? We need to make sure we're getting resources to our local governments for affordable housing, for transit as well. So I'd want to make sure both of those come together, but I think we need to be a lot more aggressive when it comes to housing.
Thank you. Next question. What would be the first piece of legislation you will sponsor? Patrick?
I'd like to see we change a lot of our governance issues at the community college to help support the big issues on sustainability, on housing and transportation to help solve these issues. I'd like to see every community college, like the CSUs and UCs are mandated now, offer abortion access. I think it's a critical misstep that wasn't included in the original legislation. And on a governance issue as well, I think that all 115 community colleges need to be able to support the production of housing.
Thank you. Sophie?
First, I would increase the transparency of the government's financial statement. They cannot hide their revenue. They cannot hide their spendings. That's very important. Billions of dollars lost, and taxpayers had no clue, were not advised. There was no disclosure, and if there were, they were misleading. So how could we know the money lost, even when you have something that's not comparable? For example, CDTFA paid you amount, then you reduce half of them in your financial statement. That's not acceptable. Transparency is the first priority.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you. So a lot of my nonprofit work has been focused on getting young people technical training in new green jobs in emerging sectors. So I'd want to strengthen apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs for our youth. So that would be in partnership with county offices of ed and local career technical education centers and ROPs. And I think this is a great way to get folks into the middle class. I've seen it myself working with our justice involved youth in pre-apprenticeship programs in construction careers. Would want to focus on that.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, gee, I'm the one that wants to repeal laws. But in between my no votes on all the spending issues, the first issue that I would attack is a reversal of Prop 47. Now, it started out as a good idea because we definitely have too many people in prison. But the way to deal with that is to repeal laws of crimes that have no victims, drug laws, etc. As for Prop 47, they never should have touched the penalties on property crimes, and it's leading to harming of innocent people. So that's the first thing I would do.
Thank you. Next question. Do you agree that the 2020 presidential election was conducted fairly and that Joe Biden won the election? Tara.
Yes.
Bob.
There are many layers wrong with our election system, and both Biden and Trump suck. And I do see problems with Biden's victory, but given a choice between Biden and Trump, it's hard for me to really care. But I suppose the short answer is no, I don't see it as a fair election. And yeah, I look at the problems with the election, and I will not say that Biden won.
Sophie.
When I walk into the voting office, they do not ask me for ID. I feel scared. What will be the outcome for not verifying the voter's qualification? So I have no comment because garbage in, garbage out. So again, I'm a fraud investigator. I'm a CPA. I look at the reconciliation. You need to verify. That's my opinion.
Patrick.
President Biden was legitimately elected president in 2020, and I completely agree that it was a fair and just election. I'm proud to see President Biden supporting his re-election campaign as well.
Thank you. The next question. When was the last time you used public transportation? Bob.
About 8 years ago in Columbus, Ohio.
Patrick. I take our VTA bus every other week to get to De Anza College to go guest lecture for the past 3 months. And I also took it as part of an exercise of when we're discussing our inequity issues in North Sunnyvale, about how long it takes to get from North Sunnyvale to high school. And the answer is over an hour. So I think it's important. I think all of us should be taking our public transportation if we want to work on public transportation policies, just to see how bad it is and how bad of reforms is needed to help fix it.
Tara.
Took BTA a couple weeks ago for an event at our county government center and joined the Sunnyvale holiday bike ride and did not run into anyone on my bike.
Oh, good. Sophie.
I work from home, and I also have a dog. I take him everywhere I go. When I try to get on to the bus or light rail coach, my dog is not allowed. So for many times, I have to look at the public transportation and hope that I can be allowed to be on the public transportation. But I was there this whole week. I was interview people coming in and out of the city. I tried to understand what's their concern. They are very worried for people saying insult and attacking people. So that's very scary. That's what I heard.
Thank you. Next question. Do you support high-speed rail? Do you support a high-speed rail system in California? Sophie.
This morning, the Caltrain driver told me it's too expensive, $1 billion lost without any result. So I need to look into that. I'm learning our transportation system. I came from Shanghai, where billions of people take subway easily in and out. So I'm very surprised that it takes so much money to build a light rail that many workers just cannot use it. So I need to learn how this works.
Tara.
I do. You know, we were talking about our budget deficit earlier. I think that investments in infrastructure, mass transit, education These are all smart investments to make where we get a return on our investment. So I do.
Thank you. Patrick?
High-speed rail is 50-plus-year-old technology. Other countries have done it very successfully. It has eluded us in California. I support high-speed rail adoption in California, but the legislature and the state government have mismanaged this and have not provided proper oversight. I think that there needs to be way more accountability on the price and the escalating price and the escalating every time you turn around. It's going to take 10 more years to do it, and we need a federal government bailout for it. We need to support it, but it needs to come with a lot of governance reform. People need to be held accountable for these missteps.
Thank you. Bob?
Are you calling that thing out in the valley a high-speed rail? Not going very fast. No, I don't support a high-speed rail, but I'm not fully against it. What would make it good or bad is if there's a market system that decides whether it's good or bad. If there's an entrepreneur who decides enough people want to go from point A to point B in a short amount of time, and he's willing to start investing private money and funds into it and not taxpayer money, then it can be a good thing, and I'll be all on board with it. Thank you.
Thank you. So next question. What do you do in your spare time? Tara?
I don't have much spare time, especially these days. But I like to go for a walk with my doggie and enjoy some air and get a bit of relaxation, but not a lot of free time in my life.
Thank you. Sophie?
I do swimming, and I meet people in the city sports, in the we call the sauna house, the community center. Yeah, so I like to talk to people. So I enjoy meeting people from all the background and to know their story. And I ask them, where do you come from? What makes you happy, and what do you do here? So I think the learning story and see how I can help to make their life better.
Bob?
Well, if spare time counts in the volunteer activities I'm in, then I do volunteer. I help with the Libertarian Party running for office, and I'm their activities chair, and I help out at Reed Hillview Airport over in East San Jose, helping to make it, preserve it as open space, and president of the disaster airlift response team there. But if that counts as work, there's not much spare time left, and I read in my spare time.
Thank you. Patrick?
Not a lot of abundant spare time these days as well, but I'm a huge foodie. I love going out to eat. I love following Mayor Larry Klein's social media posts to see, because he does a lot of the work for me in terms of highlighting all the local small businesses. He did that to support a lot of these businesses from failing during COVID. And so I love following that and picking out which restaurants to go to and support. But I love to eat different kinds of cuisine and go out with my friends and eat at different restaurants.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we have arrived at our final closing statements. So each candidate will have 1 minute to get their last words in. Patrick, you're up.
Well, thank you. This has been a great conversation, great forum. I want to thank Livable Sunnyvale. Would really be honored for your support and your vote in this election. I want to work very hard for you. I've got a lot of experience in the legislature on the local community college board on tackling these really tough issues. I want to reinvest and refocus our efforts on poverty solutions. A lot of people are doing great work. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need better partnerships. Want to really appreciate Sunnyvale Community Services for all the work they do, but they also need our support in this community as well. And I want to be the assembly member that focuses on poverty issues, using my lived experience as someone who is homeless, someone who is their family go to college, someone who's had to take public transportation. All of these affect me personally, and I want to bring a sense of urgency to tackle the issues so that people who grew up like me don't have to grow up with not having the services that I did growing up and be honored to have your support in this election. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Okay, well, thank you, Angela. Thank you, Livable Sunnyvale. And audience, I'm pretty sure that I haven't won you over yet. I know that, well, and that's how it goes. You're not all converted to libertarians, but I hope I've planted a little seed that maybe you can have the question that when you hear someone going to solve problems with more government and more laws, maybe that's not the way to do it. And so keep thinking about it. If you're thinking about it at all, that's a good thing, and keep going. If you agree with me, still vote for me. If I win the election, I'll still go to Sacramento and do my little no vote on more government and my no vote on more regulations and more spending. I'll do what I can. Otherwise, we'll just keep on keeping on, and so will I. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie?
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I was angry to see the corruptions, but I'm so happy that we get a chance to meet and to learn. So I would make sure the public safety is addressed, and the $900 free robbery should be stopped immediately. And the parents should have the right to teach their kids, and all this funding issue will be addressed if our money will not be leaked to big corporations. So transparency will help all these issues. So no matter who you vote, I'm here to work with you to make our governance over all these agencies can be more transparent. And we know how they are doing with our money. Thank you.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much, and thank you to Livable Sunnyvale and Sunnyvale Community Services for hosting us as well. You know, it's really been an honor these past less than 3 months of running for this position. I am calling this a campaign on steroids. It's both a sprint and a marathon, so I want to thank everyone I've met along the way. It's been a very positive experience, you know, running in my home community. And what I love about Assembly District 26, what I think makes us so special is our diversity and our strength in our diversity. And I think that Assembly District 26 can be a leader really in the state and the country in terms of showing how when we have diversity in thought, when we have diversity in leadership, when we have different viewpoints at the table, we can really work together and make progress on some very important issues. And we talked about a lot of them today. You know, our housing crisis, climate change, transportation, and I hope to be a partner as your assemblywoman in this assembly district.
So thank you. Thank you all. You guys can now breathe. It's over. We have no more questions. But I would just invite all of you here, however the cards fall, Livable Sunnyvale is always looking for people to help educate, outreach, and work with us. So you're all invited to our meetings. If you're interested in board positions or helping out in other ways, we are here, and we would love your help. Thank you all for being here. It was a pleasure. It was not as smooth as possible, but I think it was pretty good. So thank you. Thank you. And that's it.